welcome to this fourth episode in this 5-part series on the top 5 mistakes that people make when they start using Adobe Illustrator. In this episode, we're going to be talking about file formats and the correct way to save your artwork. If you're working for a print environment or whether you're working to output to web, it's important to understand the correct file type you need to save as. So we'll take a look at the different options available to you and how you can save correctly so that when it comes time to send your artwork off, you don't have any issues and it's all a seamless process. So let's dive right in. When working in Illustrator, there are two main types of file types that you can save as. There are the native formats that are available, and there's also the non-native formats that you can save as. So what's the difference between the two? Well, with native formats, they basically preserve all of the data and the information that you need in order to go back into the files and edit them again in Illustrator. Whereas the non-native formats don't contain all of that data, so you won't be able to go in and edit and change them after you've saved them in that format. Generally, the non-native formats are used for then placing into other programs, maybe into InDesign or Microsoft Word. So how do you save between the two? Let's go up and have a look. If we come up to File, and then I come down to Save As for this document. Now at the bottom here, you can see I can choose the different types of formats, and I've got as the default the Adobe Illustrator file format, the .ai, and generally you'll be saving in that format as you work because that's the editable file format that you can use and always come back to if you need to make changes to your artwork. Likewise, you've got the Illustrator EPS file format, which is also great for going in and changing and editing layers and all your data in your Illustrator file. The great thing about the EPS file format as well is that it can be used in other layout programs and still be editable in Illustrator. So it's kind of got the best of both worlds. You've obviously got your Illustrator template options here as well if you wanted to save a document that you've been working on as a template to come back to and use time and time again. And then we've got the PDF format, which most people would be familiar with, and that's great for being able to email out to others that may not have Illustrator or other layout programs in order to view the file. So the PDF is sort of like a universal file format. Then we've got the SVG compressed and the SVG. Now these are specifically for use on web, and so they can be used for creating interactive HTML documents that can be used online. So they're your native file formats that you can save as and come back to and change while you're working within Illustrator. Now in terms of saving as a non-native format, I need to come out of this window and come up to my file drop down, and it's underneath my export options that I can view some of the available formats for exporting. So if I click on this drop down here, you can see there's quite a number of file formats. I won't run through every one of them, but the key ones to be aware of are those if you're working within a web environment, you may need to save your files as the PNG file format. So this first one here, that's great for creating things like web graphics, if you've got social media tiles, banners for your profile pages, that kind of thing. The PNG file format is good, and it also preserves transparency. So if you've got a transparent background, the PNG file format will preserve that. Also great for web work is our JPEG format, so we can export as a JPEG. Once again, this is great for work online, for social media. It doesn't preserve transparency, however. You'll always have that rectangular artboard sitting in the background. Now the other file formats that you might want to export from here, you've got the Photoshop PSD file format, so you can actually export your files and it will preserve the layers that can then be taken into Photoshop and edited further. You've got the TIFF format, which is great if you wanted to export into another layout program such as InDesign or Publisher. And then you've got other Microsoft formats like the text format, and then also the Windows meta file, which can be used in Microsoft products. So that's just a bit of a rundown of the key differences between your native and non-native formats. We use those native formats to continue editing and working within Illustrator, and then we can export as non-native formats in order to use them in other applications. I'll normally keep a copy of both when I'm working in Illustrator. I'll always save a copy within the native file, usually the .ai, so that I can come in and edit that later at any point. And then I will also export as the other file formats should I need to use them in other applications. So it's important to be aware of your file formats when you're working with Illustrator and to understand the intent of each format before exporting or saving. I look forward to seeing you in the next Illustrator video tutorial.